August 8th, 2016. I'm Dana Durnford, your host. thenuclearproctologist.org. I didn't show up because I haven't got it keyed in. We're trying a new session on the equipment I got to try to fix the audio. That's okay. And we are streaming for 26 seconds. And hello to everybody out there. We're going to start the stream off. We got an unusual night, I think, for everybody. It's not quite the night I originally had planned. And so that's why I scheduled it for later tonight, because I decided to switch gears, and I'll explain that to you. It's about the University of Chicago, it's about Hiroshima, it's about Fukushima, in more ways than you can imagine. And we're going to play a clip for the next 3 minutes that I put together. And it's kind of humorous, kind of scary. And so here we go with that clip coming up. You're ready, Dan? Disappointment. I'm not going to talk about the drone strike that killed 4 penguins. These were pretty evil. They had to do it because they were hanging out with Al-Qaeda, see? But we're going to talk about Fukushima tonight. Yeah.
Hey, you get out there. You say it like a banana. Like walking in sunshine. Getting on airplane, yeah. I find someone do job you not do, yeah.
26, 27, 28, 29. Hey, stop your crying. 47, 48, 49, 50. Okay. Get another Fukushima 50 ready, and we'll go get these bodies in about 10 minutes. Now, you guys have been selected to go in at number 3. And it's just like a banana and a potato chip and walking in the sunshine. And so you down in the corner, stop crying. Now, I know this might seem a little scary, but all you got to do is follow the guy in front of you and pick up the fuel rod. Right? Pick up that fuel rod. You'll run outdoors. You'll make that sacrifice, or we tell your friends about Pokemon Go. These buildings absolutely, positively did not explode. There was no release. I repeat, there's no release. The buildings are not damaged. You can go back to sleep. There is absolutely, positively, beyond any shadow of a doubt, no damage to this building. This building is perfectly intact. The containment, the fuel pools above me are still there. I don't understand why everybody's making a big fuss about this. The building is fine, I'm telling you.
Tepco, love you. Tepco, your friend, yeah? Yeah, my girlfriend, your girlfriend. Tepco, love you a long time. Tepco, your friend. You got Facebook, yeah? You tell Facebook. Tepco, your friend, yeah? You friend Tepco. Oh, you friend Tepco. You friend Tepco on Facebook, yeah? You don't like Tepco, huh? What? Tepco love you a long time. Tepco, your friend. I call police on you. You don't speak elegant, Tepco. I have you thrown in prison. Who? You scared now, yeah?
Yeah, hi, Wolf. Well, I'm at the Tepco nuclear site, and these men behind me said they were asked last night to friend Tepco on Facebook, and when they said no, they were jacked in a carjacking, and they woke up here this morning at this place here, and they said they dressed them up in this stuff and told them to come here, and that a tattoo guy was going to meet them.
To push the burning fuel through into the back of the reactor.
But the heat had melted the cartridges, so they'd become stuck inside the core. They were forced to use scaffolding poles they'd found nearby to try and push the cartridges out. Radiation was so intense they could only work a few hours. They were running out of firefighters.
The police from the factory had turned up looking for volunteers, and they brought a bus, and they decided the best way to get the volunteers was to go to the cinema and volunteer the back 2 rows at the show to go into the factory to, as it turned out, to help push the fuel rods out of the out of the reactor.
Out of the reactor. So rather than get 5,000 nuclear employees to push the rods out, no, they went out with buses and took your loved ones from the theater. They're working all day. Okay, let's get on with it, I suppose. So, University of Chicago is the home of the atomic age in many senses. In every sense, that's important. And they are responsible for designs of the reactors, responsible for the fuel pools being 90 feet up in the air, 30 meters up in the air, which was a really bad design. Everybody understands that now. There was 5 reactor cores on the top of the buildings, and multiple buildings destroyed. So around 24 reactor cores are missing. Okay. Now they also are responsible with Argonne National Laboratories for that, and for the fuel pools, for no waste sites. They're responsible for Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and with the University of Chicago in tandem. Okay. Now, we're going to talk about Norma Field. And so Norma is a very unusual, how would you put it? Very unusual, or more a better way of putting it, is unique in every sense of that word. Now she has 27 views on that video. That's pretty bad. Dana says, Dana, you're only talking about her because you got almost double her views. I'm sorry, I didn't. I got 25 views and I had 2,700 thumbs up. They're all missing, by the way. Okay. End of the Nuclear Age Conference. Where are the people? We're going to start that off with, and I'm going to introduce you to Norma M. Fields. And so watch your volumes. I know I smurfed up the first video. I'll probably smurfed up this one too. This one is 5.5. Hi, everybody. I'll come over after and say hi to everybody properly. This is important. This is Norma, but this is such
My
a
name is
great
Michael Keegan.
story.
I am from Monroe, Michigan, and I work on nuclear power issues throughout the Great Lakes Basin. In the Great Lakes Basin, there are some 60 nuclear power plants. 37 of them are in the watershed directly. Another 23 are just outside the watershed, and they're in the airshed and the windshed. So if there were an accident at those, they would carry over the Great Lakes. 20% of the world's surface fresh water, arguably the most precious resource on this planet, in jeopardy. For what? So that's part of why we're here, and we're going to put an end to the nuclear age, and we need folks from all dimensions, all walks of life, all social sciences. We're going to take back science. We're going to take it out of the nuclear high priest's hands, and we're going to bring it to the people. So that's what we got a presentation coming tonight from Dr. Norma Field. She is a Robert S. Ingersoll Distinguished Service Professor Emerita of Japanese Studies in the Department of Eastern Asian Languages and Civilizations at the University of Chicago. She is interested in the struggle for social justice and sees the nuclear issue as a major frontline. She travels to and communicates regularly with Japan. She has hosted several important conferences about the nuclear age and nuclear weapons and nuclear power. She is our Saturday evening keynote speaker. And she can be contacted electronically at norma.field@gmail.com. So at this time, I would like for everyone to give Norma a warm welcome for our keynote presentation. Thank you.
Michael's been at work all day, and how he can be so energetic. It's amazing. I want to thank Michael, the other organizers, all of you who've participated so far, who've come. Really, what a day this has been so far. I do want to thank particularly the organizer who's not speaking at all, Dave Kraft. He told me a while back that he saw the China Syndrome, that film, 32 years ago or so, and that made him become an anti-nuclear activist. So if you haven't seen the China Syndrome yet, you better go see it. But what extraordinary dedication Dave and others have had for all these decades when so many Americans became complacent, enough that young Americans didn't know there was anti-nuclear activism after 3 Mile Island that kept new reactors from being built here. And so my title, Where Are the People, was actually a title given by Dave. It was also assigned to the first panel this morning. And it comes from a moment of sheer, puzzled rage that I felt. Now, among the people terribly, terribly upset about Fukushima are the nuclear industry, right? On this campus, about a month after Fukushima, there was a very big deal dog and pony show put on by Argonne National Laboratory. And you knew it was a big deal because the refreshments were really expensive, much more than anything that humanists would put on. And I was very struck that there was never any mention of the impact of Fukushima on human beings. And I remember asking about labor, what was going to happen? The Soviet Union was a command economy at that time. It could just order people in to deal with the Chernobyl catastrophe. Japan can't do it in the same way. And one of the experts on the panel simply said, you just throw more money at them. So there was that mention of human beings, right? They're susceptible to having money thrown at them. And then there was another one, this one possibly even more august, sponsored by the American Academy of Sciences, where a number of our experts participated. And it was after that I just turned around to Dave and said, there are no people. None of them is ever thinking about human beings. And so, therefore, the title and my assignment. So all of that damage control on nuclear power was being done here in the days and months after Fukushima. And the fact that human beings went unaddressed, I think, was not accidental at all. In fact, if you go back to the very beginning, the nuclear age has required either bracketing human beings altogether, identifying a portion of them as expendable, or both. And so that's what I want to talk about a little bit and then go on to think about the human impact of Fukushima and on all of us.
Okay. And so it takes a while to walk through all of this, I know. So please bear with me. Let's come over and say hi to everybody. Hello, everybody. And we got Daniel was here earlier, but it's late. We're Daniel's too. So, hi, Daniel. Amherst, Elmwood. And we got Eco. Rad testing. You can see the Geiger counter up in the right-hand corner. See it? It's already been tested through, like before the PR firms got out there. There's 220 million becquerels per liter of rainwater in Vancouver. There's 40 million becquerels of iodine-131 in the kelp off California. There was 1,500 sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs in California, and there's 360 per cubic meter of air. The list goes on and on. I've covered it many times. And what are you going to test in marine life when there's nothing left on as an extinction event along the coastline? That is all published up at my site. And so you know, what you're talking about is the straw man's argument. Hi, Miss Milky, Pam, Blasted Hippie. Because anybody can go up to my website, nuclearproctologist.org, and say, well, what are you going to take a sample of? And so there's 6,500 species in the tidal zones. I wasn't going to talk about that tonight, but we'll talk about it. We've done the expeditions for life. And Hi, Pam. That's all about the nuclear proctologist. There's an extinction event on the coastline. So I hate nothing worse. There's nothing worse than that straw man argument. That's on purpose, folks. That's because there's a murderer who killed one of our donors. But regardless, we're going to flush that out even harder now, for sure, and make sure that gets dealt with. Okay, let's keep going. And that's what I mean, that's what she was talking about, alluding to there when she was talking about the damage control from the industry. Now, what she was alluding to in that video, where she had this moment of rage, which is a very unusual thing for people to say in that position. She's a sitting professor. And she was talking about this video here. This was a couple of months after at the university. They had rolled out, as you can see in the bottom, featured Mark Peters. You'll find him in the links below my video. The Argonne National Laboratory moderator. And then you had the other bootlickers, lapdogs, and cheerleaders hanging out. Now she was there, and she asked, she asked three different questions. Her first question was she was worried about the human aspect was being ignored. And then she asked two more questions. We're going to play that in a second. But there's nowhere in that video that says, Norma, I just recognized her. It was at the very end of that video. And I just recognized her voice. I was sitting there, not paying attention per se to who was talking. I was listening to it, because I listen to these things over and over, and I usually watch them. But anyway, this was the equivalent of what I saw. And you see three thugs there. One stood up and two sat down. And watch what happens to the guy who stood up. There's a young girl walks in, and he disappears right out of sight. And she whoops him, right? She whoops him. That was an upper to gi front snap kick. She was literally nose to nose at that time when she done that. That was some amazing, unbelievably amazing skills you just saw there, and talent. And that wasn't fakery, trust me. Okay. But this is what we're going to play next. This is what I see Norma do. And at the end of it, you see they ignore her questions. Even though she asked questions, they ask her, does she have a question? And that is what she was referring to in the earlier video. And let's play that. She was just an audience member in this one. It's right at the end of the video. Here we go.
Thank you. I wanted to just observe a very important aspect of the health issues. As most people know, it takes years, if not decades, for health problems to emerge from radiation, at which point it becomes even more notoriously difficult to establish cause and effect. So I don't want those of us gathered here today to go away with an unduly sanguine notion of health problems from these disasters. But I wanted to ask a labor question from a slightly different point of view. An industrial psychologist who's been part-time taking care of seeing workers at Fukushima since 1991, in the past several days, or at least it was just reported about 3 days ago, went in to visit the workers for the first time and warned that they are on the brink of death from overwork, which is another term, karoshi, that Japan gave to the world. As probably some of you have read, initially they were only given 1 meal a day, no opportunity to sleep in peace, and now they're also suffering from stigmatization of working for this plant, so that when they visit their families in evacuation centers, they have the finger pointed at them. This is another kind of externality I won't go into, about huge problem of stigmatization of that community in terms of its products and its people. But in any case, as has been pointed out, the Japanese government, I believe, is going to raise the allowable exposure limit again. And it's tried to throw more money at subcontracting firms. And at some point, these complacent or subcontractors are in a very weak position, so they normally send their workers in. And workers in the weakest position, i.e. who have no economic choices, are the ones who do the most dangerous work. But there seems to be a limit about throwing money and demand for loyalty that's happened. In the case of Chernobyl, I know it's hard to come at the figures, but apparently I've read figures such as 700,000 liquidators being engaged. Ostensibly, in a democracy, you can't force people to go work in a crisis like that. What do you think this means? I mean, if accidents crashes can't be ruled out, how do you ensure that you're going to have people working in the most dangerous positions that demand self-sacrifice to take care of the needs? And robots, supposing robots are introduced, I read in Fukushima...
Excuse me, could you ask, if you could ask a question?
That's the question, is what to do about labor. But robots, I just wanted to add that apparently the humidity level was so high they couldn't bring back pictures at some point. Thank you.
Okay.
And so she asked him 3 questions, and then they blew her off because that was such an important point. Right? Look at them all there, right? Looking at her, she's smiling back. She's from the Bulletin for Atomic Scientists. Despicable people, okay. Hiroshima was just a pound. Fukushima, each reactor. Let's just talk about Fukushima for a second. And Fukushima has multiple reactors. 9.0 earthquake, tsunami ran through the country, ran through the power plants, 400 kilometers off that coastline. They had detonations. That meant the gone bye-bye to containment immediately. That meant the fuel pools full of reactor cores were on the roof of the building are gone. And I can't bring that in unless I go over to that kind of a window. I'm not sure what I got set up there anymore. Who knows? That's not going to work. I'll come back to where I was before getting in more trouble. Okay. Supposed to be able to zoom in, but I'll deal with it later. And this is number 1, melt down, melt through, melt out. This is number 2, melt down, melt through, melt out. It's number 2. It's the side of it. This is what they always show you, right? This is number 3. I'm sorry, this is where the tsunami came through the place. This is number 3. This is mixed oxide fuel, MOX fuel. This is 2 million times worse than any other reactor and had 5 reactor cores on the roof on top of that. Or up close to the roof, 90 feet in the air, say. These buildings detonated. In desperation, they sprayed salt water on it. The salt water created the sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyball. It took the salt water, took the sulfur, and turned it into like these buckyballs. They were able to ingest the thousands of radioactive elements and turn them into little nuclear engines that are not solutable with water, are easily transportable, that have a very longevity to them beyond their normal context they should have. Let's keep talking about this for a second. This is Unit 4. They gutted it right down to the ground almost. Then they built this building alongside of it and above it slightly. Then they rolled out that picture. Now, that picture is inside of that building, but the lapdogs, like the one you seen in the comments section earlier, will tell you it's in that building. But that thing there is not inside of that, so they faked it. Right? That's why they had that big truck. And why would you have that big truck if the ceiling looked like that, by the way? You know, why would you use that truck if everything looked like that hunky-dory? Why would you have to build all of that if it looked like this? Why would you tear it all off when it originally looked like that? Inside of that, anywhere, you can't find that, see? The buildings all melted, melt through, melt out. The tsunami came through, it took out all the telephone poles for 400 kilometers. It chewed up all the fuel pools, all the nuclear holding sites, waste sites that are stored throughout that 400 kilometers. And what is going to happen to that child when that child grows up? Is that child going to have post-traumatic stress disorder? And is the millions and millions and millions of children that like that going to have that? Yes, on top of everything else, if they're lucky enough to make it that far. 30 million one-ton bags. 30 million. 30 million. 30 million. But they say only a couple of pounds got out, but 30 million one-ton bags. The ocean currents come here in 45 days at 5 miles per hour, 24 hours a day for 45 days is 5,500 miles. Right? it gets here by the wind in 3 or 4 days anyway, and then it washes back down to the coastline. And so the expeditions I've done along the coastline of Canada, in 260 days, 15,000 miles of the coastline. Let's keep going. It's all up in nuclear proctologist. Okay. We're going to let Norman Fields talk about, for 2 minutes, now this video only got 25 views, so I'm going to play it here tonight to make sure it got that many more views again, because it's such a great little video. Anytime you're ready, Dana. I'm ready. Here we go.
Another beautiful scene of an area, a strange bit of bureaucratic jargon designated to where people are encouraged to evacuate. But anyway, the farmer did not sow his seeds that year, so it's just an overgrown field of rice. April 16th last year, actually, some farmers were encouraged to plant, which is a huge problem, because then they felt, okay, the government has given us the okay, and then later they realized there's nowhere to sell their produce to, et cetera, et cetera. So another beautiful, beautiful picture from an in-between kind of zone. I took this in November last year, and it's in front of this cafe whose owner has had to give up on her occupation because she used the firewood from around to burn her stove. She gathered herbs and nuts for dishes for her cafe. But as you can see, nothing looks changed. It is beautiful, all the solar panels. It was lovingly hand-built, and yet it can no longer be a source of livelihood for its owner, who actually will be coming to speak in May. So I'll tell you more about that later. This picture, I just wanted you to, again, to jumpstart you into what everyday life is like. This is probably, 3, 4-year-old child in her home, in the dining room of her home, and her parents, having gotten a Geiger counter, borrowed one, as so many Japanese have, discovered that it was the middle of this room that had the lowest radiation levels. So they've built not a playpen, but they've confined this child to the safest part of her home. Now, how long is it possible for parents to keep a child in these circumstances? But these are the kinds of questions that people living there have been faced with.
Right, and see, that's a side you never hear. What's happening to Japanese workers' labor forces changes? That's 2010. And so she was very aware way back. She is a professor in Japanese studies, folks. But I'm just making sure everybody understands who you're listening to. And I just want people to understand there are people out there that, and some of the stuff coming up you're going to love, trust me. So before I play Atomic Mom, I'm going to play this one here. And this is self-explanatory, I think, and just really gives you an endearing look at the people that helped close all the reactors in Japan. So let's play that. Once again, watch your volumes.
42 years since 1970, when the commercial reactor program began, when there were 2. Now we're at this moment of nuclear zero. As many of you know, May 5th is Children's Day in Japan. This is a special Children's Day. In a few minutes, about the time our first keynote speaker, Mr. Koide, begins to speak, the last commercial reactor of the 50 currently operating in Japan will shut down for routine maintenance. And as you know, there's a special relationship between children and radiation because they are particularly vulnerable. The vulnerability of precious beings who, generation after generation, literally renew our senses to the preciousness of life, is a dark reminder that the technology that was to remove drudgery from our existence threatens that very existence. This moment of so-called nuclear zero, the best gift to the children of Japan, this was the message conveyed to me by Professor Ono Yugo, emeritus of Hokkaido University, and one of the chairpersons of a lawsuit to stop this last nuclear reactor that's going into shutdown now forever. And I think it's a thought that many people have had, that this is the best gift for Children's Day to the children of Japan.
So my audio's a little low. I jack it up a little, not above that. That's all I can do, man. If it goes too loud, I need $600 worth of cable, I need all of this, blah, 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 blah. I got a million excuses. Which one do you want to hear? Okay, so I try to fix my audio for everybody. So, Atomic Mom. So you can see the way she was celebrating the closing of the reactors. That was in 2012. Nora Fields, University of Chicago, 872 views. And this is Atomic Mom. And some rather good moments, a lot of good moments in this, but once again, you're going to have to watch your audio as it jumps in. Here we go.
Over half of my life, many decades now in the United States, I've really been struck by how American citizens have been deprived of the opportunity to learn about the history of the bomb in the first instance and to debate it. And so that for most people, discussion begins and ends with saying, it was a good thing to have dropped the bomb, it ended the war earlier, and it saved American lives, and therefore, some people will go on to say, it also saved Japanese lives. And so having realized that that was the extent to which most people were engaged with the issue, very important chapter in U.S. history, the amnesia about the bombs has made Americans unprepared and unwilling to examine the use of depleted uranium, which is a highly radioactive substance in the Gulf region or in the Middle East, and to look at it, what its impact has been in storage in parts of the continental United States and in Hawaii. And because we know how long it took for Agent Orange to be acknowledged as having produced problems for Vietnam veterans and the Vietnamese people, I'm afraid it's going to take much, much longer for depleted uranium to be recognized. That's one kind of problem. I think it's made the ignorance about the impact of atomic weaponry has made it possible every time the United States is engaged in hostile action to summon this notion of the smart bomb or the mini bomb, as if there were any possibility of containing the impact of nuclear weapons anywhere, that it is as harmful to those who deploy it as those for whom it is used upon. So we're unprepared to think about that, and it allows generals to mouth off very blithely about these weapons as if they were somehow a solution. 31 years after nuclear power plants pretty much stopped being built in this country, a sudden and very welcome awareness of global warming has produced the solution of nuclear energy as a clean form of energy. And that, to me, is very, very alarming in the sense that those people my generation were activists around nuclear power plants as having long-term implications in terms of leakage and emissions long-term, because, again, ignorance about the impact of radiation has meant that people only think about short-term harm through dropping bombs rather than the long-term genetic issues there's that kind of problem. People aren't ready to think about accidents. We're going to constantly be reassured about how plants can be made safe, but plants can never be made safe enough. And no one has ever come up with a solution to where to store nuclear waste. So I think that American amnesia coming upon massive ignorance poses a very immediate threat right now, and a threat, in fact, I think that's much more alarming than global warming itself in terms of the potential of large-scale harm and irreversible harm.
Now that was, what was the date on that again? That was February 24th, 2011. March, so 11 and 7, is it? There's 28 days in February, so 15 days later, Fukushima happened. So you can see that she was also at battle, but she showed up at that and asked that question, and because of that, that's why a lot of these videos showed up. This clip coming up is a short one. I'm gonna sneeze, hang on.
Regrettably, radiation is invisible, so people can't know how much they're being contaminated. This is a drawing probably made with the hope that if radiation were to be made visible, even children would become aware and take steps to protect themselves. But alas, radiation is invisible, and children continue to be living in areas heavily contaminated by radiation. I said with the previous slide that according to Japanese law, areas contaminated with a greater density than 40,000 becquerels per square meter have to be declared radiation control zones. In other words, all the blue areas and most of the green areas, if Japanese law were to be followed, would have to be declared radiation control zones.
And so all of Japan should be a radiation control zone, yeah? Okay. So far so good. If radiation was visible, let's bring up that picture again. Where's that picture? There it is. Isn't that a great picture? I'm going to bring it up. So the Geiger counter is real up in the corner. In Germany, they throw the food on a nuclear waste site at 5, pre-Fukushima, and France did it at 17. I got 123, 132 counts per minute right that second. And so it's not me saying what's on the Geiger counter, it's what's on the Geiger counter. I know people are saying, Dana says there's all these numbers. And I'm not saying jack. The numbers are right there in the screen where we're streaming in real time. Okay, how's everybody doing? Hi, everybody. I'm cruising your comments as we're watching the video here. So I got another clip coming up. We're moving through it. Now, not that one. Not that one. That one's after. Okay, here we go. Let's keep going. Atomic Mom, you've seen that one. Okay, so this story came out August 5th, a few days ago. Today's the 8th, 2016. And Tokyo Electric Power Company has declared at the Tokyo District Court it has no responsibility to pay compensation to the family of dementia patients who went missing during the opening days of the crisis at the utilities of Fukushima No. 1 nuclear power plant. Actually, Norma, bless her heart, had this guy there. Now, he's made a few mistakes along the way, but who don't, including me. But anyway, this particular clip, let me get my glasses on. Dina. It's 3 minutes. So we're talking about not only these families. I think there was 90 of them. TEPCO amended to that one finally. Stressed they can't. So, however, see the fourth sentence down in the paragraph. However, in the case of the woman who went missing at the age of 88, the utility has stressed that it cannot recognize a nuclear accident that led to the disappearance. Okay. Let's see. Let's cover that one there. She's translating for him. She brought him in to do the lecture at those symposiums he started out creating. She got a lot of them over there at that site, the University of Chicago. This was one of the speakers. And she's a great host, and she's just a bright light out there for everybody. They give you hope that there is real academics out there, that there really are people out there that are extraordinarily capable, like these people. Here we go.
Even with such a disaster, there are people, the promoters of nuclear power, who say, well, even if you say that, we've hardly had any casualties from this incident. I've clipped out a Japanese paper here. There's a large hospital, Futaba Hospital, in one of the plant sites, Okuma. Approximately 400 patients were in the hospital at the time. This hospital was located 4 kilometers away from the reactor. And as unit after unit began to explode, the hospital monitoring the radiation levels noticed that they were just climbing up very quickly. Even the police said all you can do is run. So hospital staff tried to save as many of their patients as possible, carrying them out on beds, on stretchers, and putting them in cars. This article recounts how just the very process of trying to save the patients by getting them out led to many of their deaths, and there were 90 patients who simply had to be left to die. That person is the owner of the keeper of that cow. This person, once the government issued evacuation orders, got on a bus and left. Of course, he could not take his cow with him, so it was left in the stall. But for this man, the cow is a member of his family. Every cow has its name. Each morning he would have called each cow by name, rubbed its body, given it feed, and lived together in that way. This picture shows this man unable to endure abandoning his cow, dressed in some protective gear with a mask, coming back to feed the cow. Of course, not all cattle farmers, dairy cow farmers are like him, and so we can see the number of cattle that died trapped in their stalls. And of course, horses died. Some farmers, unable to tolerate keeping their cows trapped, let them loose. And so cows roam the streets of towns that have been deserted. And we have to understand that their bodies are thoroughly contaminated. The plan of the government is to destroy all heads of cattle living in contaminated areas. It makes me despair to think about the fact that none of these cows or horses have any responsibility for what's happened.
And neither did those dementia patients, right, that have been denied peace in their family, some restitution. That is atypical of TEPCO. And once again, you remember that. Right, all you gotta do is pick up the fuel rods. Can you imagine someone saying that to you? Pick up the fuel rods. When he drops it, say to the next guy, when he drops the fuel rod, you pick it up and run with it. That's gallows laugh, by the way, folks. You got to send in around 6 million people. Chernobyl's 1/3 the size. Chernobyl stopped after 10 days. Chernobyl was a 30% meltdown. Chernobyl, you still can't eat the meat in certain parts of UK, Ireland, and Scotland, or drink the milk there in certain parts. You can't sell the land in certain parts of Ireland, Scotland, UK because of Chernobyl. There's Kofi Annan had said in 2000 at the UN podium that over 3 million children in Belarus and Ukraine had permanent disabilities. There's orphanage after orphanage after orphanage of deformed children. Who's going to love them? Think about Iraq, Fallujah. 84% of the women have deformed babies from the depleted uranium. The Gulf War, 700 tons. A Japanese physicist at a Hamburg conference estimated the 700 tons they admitted to, I should say, being used in the Gulf War, Kuwait, and the Highway of Death. That 700 tons was the animosity equivalent of 44,000 Hiroshima bombs in the animosity release. It never stops releasing because all he done was buried it there. And so it's being liberated through all kinds of vectors. But, you know, when you study the Hiroshima victims, and you'll see them all out there, Geraldine Thomas from UK, John Boyce from America, there's all kinds of them. We've covered many of these lapdogs. So I thought tonight was an interesting night. We'll cover a shining light out there for a change. Because we don't find shining lights out there very often, do we? That would give us hope, you know? And they have worked a long time to take away that hope. And, you know, the parallels of her work in being a professor, emeritus at Chicago University, and she got that a certain distinguishing because of the last ambassador to Japan, an ambassador to Japan. And she studies Japanese culture and everything else in society. But here she is, a staunch nuclear activist that goes way back, you know, predates Fukushima, for instance. Not that that would matter. I'm just saying, you know, there's a whole lot of, and you can't, and because I've studied so much of her over the last couple of days, trying to get up to speed. And for this, you can't really encompass the enormity of what she have done in a video like this. You just can't do it. You can't even scratch that surface, as far as I'm concerned. And it's just refreshing, and you know, there's that spirit that can't be conquered. And I know she has that. You can't fake the things. You know how, like, if you look at my site, it got all these corny artists on it. They all got really, really strong vocals, perfect vocals. And each one of them, I listened to 200 artists that didn't have vocals at all, or weren't even trying, say, right? And so the artists I have on my site, many years later, they produced an amazing amount of music. But that is why I'm like I am, because I can't find that natural flow in the vocals. It's the same thing with nuclear scientists, and we all know that about me, I think, by now. We all know that that's how I roll, row, 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 row. No, I'm not having a seizure. Row, row, row. I'm not having a Clinton. Row, 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 row. But it's, you can hear when you know, you're there, there's no external noises, good set of headphones on. It's still not the same as being in front of those people by any means. Don't get those nuances, those minutiae and everything else. So they're vocals. You can't absorb that emotion, that eureka moments where they say things they've never said before. And you can tell that subtlety, even though most people wouldn't have no concept, only her, right? But I can tell with an artist that's really good vocals, whether they've done the song one time or 400 times, no problem, for instance, right? But there's also a sincerity where someone might have wrote the song and just winged it because they understood that was special, what they just done, and they can really belt it out, and it works, right? Like a person who can really sing reasonable and play instrument really well, sits at a campfire and can captivate everybody. Works. And so Norma struck me as that. And as the last couple of days unfolded and I cranked it up and sitting there, starting to pay attention now that, wait a second, I haven't tasted this before. And how do I express something you can't taste and you can't smell or you can't feel or touch? And so we make these corny little videos to tell these stories that are not very happy stories, they're not supposed to be happy stories. You can't talk about radiation without sounding salacious or fear-mongering, as people like to say, because the unknown is very fearful. In this case, Dr. Raymond Gilmedi from Loveless Respiratory Research Institute in New Mexico, 35 years feeding dogs plutonium-238 from a chain reaction. And all the dogs died within 5 years. And he'd done that for 35 years, never cured a single dog, never learned a single thing, obviously, about what it's like to be a human. They're emotionless, emotionally crippled, I think is a way to put it. Okay, and so if every dog died in every study, you get up in the morning, you say to your kids, hi, I can't take you to the soccer game, we got a whole new box of puppies come in, we got to gas them with plutonium or curium, which is the biggest byproduct of the fuel rods, not iodine. And for every iodine 131, there's 10 times more 132, 30 times more iodine 133. And these will ionize and radiate your thyroid glands 9 times more effectively than iodine 131. But iodine 129, anything from chain reaction is deionized radiation. And just because it got the same atomic numbers as the 55,000 plus elements in the solar system, they're unique to call man-made. And that's why we have terrestrialized nuclear holding sites. We don't have waste sites. We don't have repository. We had WIP, and they caught fire, right? They done the TV come out and demonize me for saying, well, the plume would have went through your communities and on your playgrounds, and they come out and played that clip and demonized me and equated me with UFOs and everything else. Of course, I got them back. WK, what was it? KRQE Channel 13. Anybody wants to look up that? Like a 9-minute video or something? And chains and thunder and lightning and that one, dogs, eagle dogs. So we'll come over, we'll say hi, say goodnight to everybody rather. And thank you. And I'll make that a little bit smaller. Hi everybody, Nev Killer and Jan, and I'll move myself over. Dina. Oh. And so I noticed we got some more interfering. I think that's, I don't know what to make of that. I thought I solved that interference in my audio right there. Hi everybody. Hi Nev Killer. I'm looking over here now at the external computer that I got piped in on the screen there. Dart. Sylvia. Shanikin. Hi Elaine. And Ellie. Chris. Miss Milky. Sylvia. I haven't seen Sylvia for a while. Like everybody. I don't expect people to hang out here all the time. And the ones that do, I admire you, and I don't blame you. If by now, if you're educated enough, you're not able to make it anymore because you can't listen to me say the same things over and over. I should take the boat out. Yes, Pam, agreed. I got to be down in court for next week, on next Monday, for calling out the nuclear apologists. That whole debacle, that's not gone away. That demonized me in the mainstream media, made me take down 300 of these presentations, I guess we'll call them. And then I got to go to court again in September for 3-day trial, 6 hours a day. They're not going to show up, right? This was like a slap lawsuit against public participation. This was meant to bankrupt me, drag me into a outer district. Victoria, British Columbia, Canada is a long way away from here. 2,000 kilometers of drive and a dozen hotels and ferries. And the reason it took so many ferries is because we had to take the long way. We had to go down to Gibson, then over to Vancouver, then Vancouver over to the island, then over to Victoria by vehicle. Because we had a storm, couldn't cross here, right? Because we're isolated. There's 2 ferries, one on each side of us here in British Columbia, Canada. Anybody's not familiar with him, Dana Durnford, the nuclear proctologist, .org. And I'm not sure if we got links below tonight, but I'll put them in after. And so the little bit of money we raised, I can't buy the lights. I'm going to have to spend it to go to court. and to see this through, of course. And we're doing a documentary at the same time about the Fukushima expeditions for life, the 260 days we ran the coastline on the boat that Pam was talking about, by the way. Amthurst is out there. Anybody I didn't get to, my apologies. Rob, just tune up the last couple of minutes. It usually takes us an hour to kill the show. And because I don't have this particular one loaded, like I'm trying to get away from the issues of the audio I can't solve, so I got a whole new session. But the other session had somewhere between 10 and 12,000 of the documentations imported in it over the last 90 streams. I kept everything because I can hold whatever I can throw at it. I can throw terabytes at this thing. It's amazing, massive amount of equipment I got here that I'm slowly but surely conquering, right? I'm slowly but surely getting a handle on it. Then I had to go ahead and do this to try to fix the audio. And we might go back to the other ones. I might have the audio resolved because I did go back and forth with that other session. And the session is so hard to live stream. It's so hard to do what I do. It's so impossible to bring you a live stream and be lucid at the same time, because you're like so many screens, so many pieces of equipment, and so many different software that can go wrong. It does. But I'm conquering it. I mean, if I didn't have to take 300 of my presentations for calling out Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution and University of Victoria in British Columbia, I'm legally not allowed to say their names, but I can say the institutions. Or not, I don't even care. Come arrest me, I couldn't care less. I'm not going to be shutting up for anybody anytime soon, that's for sure. Lock me up, you can't keep me in jail forever. It's going to be rough when I come out, I can assure you. Maybe rough the longer this lasts, I can assure you, forever. The longer this lasts, the rougher I'm going to be for the rest of my life. I ain't taking it from any boot-looking, cheerleading, lapdogs, puke machines, PR, public, mass murder, and psychopaths from the nuclear industry. And there's 2,000 of those firms out there. There's 1 million corporations sucking on the nuclear tit, which is the taxpayers' pension plans, social security plans, education plans. Anything left over from the misery machine, the war machine, is leached and sucked out by the vicious thugs, the nuclear industry. So hugs for everybody. Take care, folks. Catch everybody on the next stream. If you want to help me for my trip coming up, and we'll do some expeditions, we raise enough. You can donate at thenuclearproctologist.org with your credit cards. We've been doing that for a couple of years. No disappointed customers or donators. And you can donate at PayPal, Dana Durnford at hotmail.com. And you can contact me at that same email. My phone number is 604-223-0763. Keep it short. And you can Skype or whatever, in case maybe if you need to talk more. Hugs for everybody. We'll talk to everybody soon. Once again, thumbs up for Norma Fields. Elise, here she's appreciated, I can assure you. I'm sure lots of people appreciate it. But thank goodness we found somebody out there finally that is worthy of going in and listening to, for sure. That's all I'm saying. She's worth listening to. You should do at least that much. And she got videos out there, like I said, with 27 views after a year. And that's probably why. See? Hugs for everybody. Take care, folks.